4W. Some people say that it is necessary for people to go to important historical sites in order to understand history better. Do you agree with this opinion? Experience, motivation, technology. I agree that it is necessary for people to go to important historical sites to understand history better. First, people can experience the actual scale of historical sites, such as the pyramids in Egypt. They cannot experience this by seeing these sites online, even with today's advanced technology. Second, visitors will have the opportunity to talk to local people. These people have stories about local history which include important information that is not in books. Such stories can make people want to learn more about history. For these reasons, I think people should visit historical sites. Yes, I agree that it is necessary for people to visit important historical sites to understand history better. I have two reasons. First, visiting these sites helps people feel the history directly. For example, by seeing famous buildings or old battlefields, they can clearly imagine what happened there. Books alone cannot give people the same feeling. Second, historical places often have museums or guides who can explain history clearly. This allows people to learn details and facts easily. So, visiting these sites helps people remember historical events more deeply. For these reasons, I think going to historical sites is necessary for people who want to truly understand history. Yes, I agree with this opinion. I have two reasons. First, historical sites allow people to learn history in a more enjoyable way. When people visit such places, they become interested and curious about past events. This makes learning history easier and more interesting. Second, historical sites help people connect emotionally with history. For example, visiting places like Hiroshima helps people understand the sadness and tragedy of war better than textbooks. This emotional connection is important because it makes people care more about history and remember it clearly. Therefore, I think visiting historical sites is a necessary experience for understanding history deeply. Yes, I think it is necessary to visit historical sites to understand history better. I have two reasons. First, historical sites show people real objects from the past, such as old houses, tools, or clothes. People can understand how people lived in the past by seeing these things. Second, visiting historical places helps people understand historical events from different points of view. For instance, they can learn about the lives of ordinary people, not just famous leaders or events. Such experiences help people realize that history affects many people's lives. Thus, I believe visiting historical places is necessary to understand history fully. No, I do not think it is necessary for people to go to historical sites to understand history better. I have two reasons. First, people can learn enough history by using books and the internet. These resources have detailed information and pictures that help people understand historical events clearly, even without visiting the sites. Second, visiting historical places can be expensive and difficult for some people. Many important sites are far away, and not everyone can easily travel there. It is better to use easier methods like reading or watching documentaries. For these reasons, visiting historical sites is not necessary to understand history better. No, I disagree with this opinion. I have two reasons. First, some historical sites today look very different from the past. Many buildings have been rebuilt or changed, so visiting these sites does not always help people understand history accurately. Sometimes pictures and old writings give a clearer idea. Second, historical sites can be crowded, noisy, and difficult to concentrate on learning. When too many tourists visit, people might not be able to think deeply about history. Therefore, people can learn more effectively by studying quietly at home using books or online resources. So, I believe going to historical sites is not necessary. No, I don't think it is necessary to visit important historical sites to understand history better. I have two reasons. First, many excellent documentaries and videos explain history clearly. Watching these materials at home can give people detailed explanations and visuals, helping them understand historical events without traveling. Second, visiting historical sites usually provides only limited information. Sometimes visitors must rely on short explanations or guides, and this information is not always accurate or detailed enough. In contrast, books or lectures provide more complete and reliable information. For these reasons, visiting historical sites is not necessary for understanding history deeply.